let's talk about Ergo. And let's talk about how I'm going to be doing a $1,000 Ergo giveaway on Friday, April 8th. I'm going to tell you how you can get entered to win that $1,000 at some point in this video. So you guys got to stick around to see when I'm going to say it. And I guarantee that there's only going to be a handful of people that actually complete the task. Last time I did a $500 giveaway, and I want to say there was only 6 people that actually completed it. So I just split up all $500 between all 6 people. So I can honestly say that I've done 25 plus interviews with all different types of layer 1 blockchains. When I say this is probably one of the best, most educational, well put together interviews that I've ever done, I think that might be an understatement. Arminio from Ergo breaks down blockchain technology from first principles for an absolute beginner. I tried my best to add animations and help you guys understand exactly what blockchain technology is, how sharding works, what limitations there are with scaling, how many transactions per second can blockchains actually do versus what they claim they can do, and why I think that Ergo is going to be a big competitor in the coming years. Arminio, what's up, my man? We got the Ergo squad in the house, and it's an honor to have you, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on to help educate everybody about what Ergo is, and I'm looking forward to learning more about this project, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, Ryan. Thanks for having me on.
Great, man. It's an honor to have you. So I like to kind of just let the guests kind of dictate where the show goes, but I think it would be probably best if we started for the absolute beginner for people that never heard of Ergo. Do you want to give us a quick little recap on what Ergo is, and then I'll kind of just try to pinpoint and pick out little questions so we can help explain exactly what Ergo is? Sure.
I would start with the question why Ergo is.
Yep.
Right? And so Ergo came about by our core developer, Alex Chirpnoy. Basically, he first started creating a tool called ScoreX, which allows developers to test blockchains. Basically, you can spin up different parameters and kind of test them in real life. So he created a tool for testing blockchains and then actually built Ergo from that experiment.
No way.
Yeah, so that ScoreX is actually a framework that came out of IOHK. He basically gave it away to, Hyper Labs or something like that. But it's still a tool that's around and people can play with to try to build and spin up blockchains. So he actually kind of built the tool to build blockchains and then built a blockchain from that.
You see my mouth, it like hit the floor. I've said this from day one. It blows my mind that this industry, that we don't have anything that actually like visibly benchmarks a blockchain's capacity. I always say that these blockchains claim they can do 75,000 transactions per second, but then when it comes time to actually deliver on that, it seems like they're always hitting bottlenecks or scalability issues or limitations. I always wondered why we didn't have anything. I didn't know that there was something that actually benchmarked.
Yeah, there are tools out there for spinning up blockchains. You know, the problem with a blockchain is a decentralized system in and of itself is inefficient, right? If you want something as fast as possible, the best way to do that is centralize it.
Yep.
Because then you can have the hardware capacity
servers,
to run it very fast. Now, if you have a network that's working across the world where networks are not always up, you have latency, speed issues, it's very hard to benchmark that because layer 0 itself is not stable globally, right?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of trade-offs when it comes to blockchain designs. I would say that in terms of the network itself, Ergo is actually designed to be pretty conservative. Now, part of the reason why is because you have a lot of latency issues. If you're a proof of work and you get down to a smaller block time, what happens with Ethereum at the moment, you get uncle blocks all the time. And that's not always the most efficient way to kind of organize your chain.
Can you explain an uncle block in case anybody's...
Sure. So let's say we're both miners, right? And we essentially produce a block at almost the same time to where you have 2 blocks on the network. One of them is going to end up carrying the weight of the main chain. The other one is basically going to be discarded at some point. Well, ETH, you get paid for that, which is nice for the miner, but for like the actual network itself, visibly, it's certainly a little messy. If you think about it.
I can imagine, yeah.
So for our particular chain, Ergo is actually a little bit slow. Our block time is about 2 minutes. And the goal of that is to try to prevent that kind of forking or uncle or bastard block, whatever you want to call it.
For sure, man. That's that's probably the best explanation I've ever heard anybody explain that.
So, in terms of throughput, you have limited real estate in a blockchain.
Hmm.
You have limited space, limited bytes per block. Now you can go the let's say Bitcoin SV style, get massive 2 gigabyte blocks, and you can fit a ton of transactions in that space. But the problem is, who's going to store all that data?
Yeah, the hardware requirements.
Yeah, you're kind of back to the let's say centralized servers is the best way to go.
Mm-hmm.
You can try to increase the speed. Sometimes that gets messy. Our goal is to create basically a base layer that's for settlement, and then build layer 2s on top of that.
That's so smart. I keep telling everybody the bottom layer 0, or whatever they call them, layer 1s now. You wouldn't want to build a World Trade Center on top of a sandbar in the middle of the ocean, right? You'd want to find a granite slab and build it on the best foundation humanly possible.
So our goal with layer 1 is to simply have settlement or verification. We are extended UTXO, which is a little bit different than what you see in Bitcoin in terms of like the standard UTXO. Now, one thing that's a little bit interesting is we actually went live on, let's say, July 1st, 2019 in mainnet. We had Snorsh support, which is what Taproot just added to Bitcoin. So a lot of what is going to be built on the Bitcoin network, we're going to be able to pull from because we already support that particular signature scheme.
Oh, wow.
Now, what is a Snorsh signature? Is what's called a Sigma protocol. That's not the only Sigma protocol that we support. We also support the Hyman-Duffy tuple, which basically allows for ring signatures and privacy-oriented stuff, which is why you see the mixer basically on the base layer in Ergo, which I think is ultimately one of the most interesting things about our project, is that we bring cryptography not just let's say from the core, but you can actually build custom signatures on application levels to where you get.
Can you explain that a little bit more, what you mean by that?
Sure. So right now, the general thought in the crypto industry in terms of like distribution of bridges or infrastructure, which are ultimately choke points, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to go from one chain to another, you have to take a bridge. A bridge is literally a bridge, one spot you got to go through. So how can you take trust assumptions and distribute them? And basically, in order to do that, right now, the common thought is, okay, you need to have multi-sig or, multiple actors that have to come to some consensus in order to be quote unquote trustless, right? Well, with Sigma protocols, we can build native trustless signatures, or K out of N, where you have a set number of like assumptions or actors that have to be approved in order for let's say something to be accepted by the chain. We can build that natively without pulling from any external library or and if you look at what just happened with Wormhole on Solana, that's basically what the hack was. Somebody spoofed the library, and all of a sudden, there's a bunch of money gone.
Yeah, that allowed them to basically create fake wrapped Ethereum, right?
Yep.
And they were able to like cipher out, like send in the fake and take out the real Solana or whatever that was. Is that how they were doing it?
Yeah, basically what happened is they were able to spoof the verification of a trustless assumption. And a part of the reason why is because that's not really natively supported by the blockchain. It's just a library that they use. Versus, in Ergo, we can actually build that signature natively on chain.
Oh, wow.
So it's something that as we develop infrastructure, I'm hoping that we get very strong cryptographic assumptions that are anchored basically to our protocol.
That's crazy. Somebody said yesterday when I tweeted something on Twitter, and a guy said you guys did a 50,000 or something like that airdrop. Was that true yesterday?
Yesterday was a crazy day for the network. We have people right now that just kind of try to break our stuff. They're playing around on the network. I don't think they're like malicious actors or anything, but there's kind of been a question like who can airdrop the most tokens at once.
Yeah.
Because UTXO, instead of having like from one account to one account, you can have one to many. And so we've created tools that allow you to basically import wallet information and then upload it as a mass drop. So somebody in 3 transactions, I think, dropped, they dropped, I think it was total 53,000 output. It's different wallets, and it actually was kind of a little bit of a problem for us because we had sometimes if you drop unsupported assets into exchange wallets, they have a mempool, and then it takes the exchange mempool offline, and the exchange is like, what is happening? We're getting DDoS attacked. So we had like a organic DDoS attack on the exchange wallet. It's little messed up, but yeah, you can do some really amazing things with UTXO, especially when it's extended. I think we've had 10,000, 20,000 in just one transaction.
Jeez, oh Pete, man, that's crazy.
So it's pretty neat technology when you really start to get into what it's capable of. Now our downside, I'm going to be real with you. Our downside right now, love,
man, keep it real. Our
downside right now is that it's early. If you look at a lot of the stuff that's out there, it's EVM based. Ethereum did an absolutely great job at building open source frameworks that were reusable, and they took the barrier of development from initially quite high to where now if you want to copy paste together contracts and protocols and DeFi primitives, it's really easy and quick. And so then it's like, okay, you have EVM running on multiple systems, and it's really well adopted.
And what does it mean for the new people, EVM compatible, when blockchains say that they're EVM compatible? What is the upside and the downside to being EVM or not being EVM compatible?
Sure. Well, you basically have a primary programming language, Solidity, that is used by Ethereum. They did a really good job of open source education frameworks. I really have to show a lot of respect to that project in terms of how they took basically a new software language and really did a good job of bootstrapping it pretty much everywhere to where a lot of developers all around the world are familiar. They can get into that pretty easy. There's great tooling. There's a lot of open source examples to where they can play with it and build new things. Now, for Ergo, we have a totally different smart contract model. In fact, I wouldn't even call it a smart contract. I would call it multi-stage verification.
Okay.
So like the best way to understand that is in extended UTXO, you do basically logic flows, where if you want to do a smart contract, it might consist of 10 separate actions, right?
I understand how they work for this a little bit.
So basically you cut it up into each little action, and each little action has to go through a verification that it, executed correctly. And after X amount of actions, you get your end result.
Oh, I program in, I'm an engineer in the robotics field, and I program in RS Logic 5000. So I understand exactly what you're saying, like to the T.
Yeah, versus, Solidity is more you write the entire program and then you run it. So extended UTXO does have some pretty good security guarantees just because of how you have to put it together. You have to put it together piece by piece by piece.
And if it's not put together right, you won't get the end result that you're looking for, right? It's a bunch of true or false statements, and once all are true, you have access to execute whatever condition is at the end, right?
Yeah, basically in Ergo script, you compile it to what's called Ergo tree. Ergo tree breaks it down to Boolean logic, which is yes, no. And if you get the no, nothing happens. You know?
Exactly.
If you get the yes, something happens. And, to some degree, it's a matter of we need to educate and basically build that same open source framework that Solidity did a great job doing. So it's not like a wheel that we have to go out and reinvent. It's just a matter of time focus, education, tooling,
absolutely, man.
Building examples. And then, what comes after that is you have developers that come and they create new and novel things.
So will you guys, how do you understand exactly how Ethereum was able to get from where they started at to having, I assume they had professors in universities that are actually teaching in Solidity and stuff like that?
Sure, we're exploring that option.
That's what you guys are exploring? How does a blockchain go about getting people into, like, would you guys have to send somebody from your team to become a professor for like 6 months at a university and work with student teachers until he was confident enough to build your program?
Not necessarily. We have a big advantage in that our core developer is basically still an academic researcher. He's already in the circles, you know?
Yeah.
Right now we're actively working on a new paper for a new mixing scheme where you can basically mix any native token that you transfer onto Ergo. We can obfuscate it. So, you know, you're wearing a Flux hat, right?
Yep.
You transferred Flux.
Shit. Sorry, man. That's so freaking rude of me.
I don't care.
All right. I was like, I didn't even think about that, man. I'm so sorry. That's such a disrespectful thing to do.
Don't worry. What are you talking about? Disrespect.
I'm sorry.
It's a hat. Don't worry about it.
All right, man. I'm sorry. I thought that was going to be so rude. I didn't even realize that, man.
That's all right. You have Flux, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Bring it into the example.
Yep.
If you take Flux and you were to bridge that to Ergo, we can make Flux a privacy token.
Wait.
Wait.
Say that one more time, my friend.
Any asset that comes onto Ergo can use Sigma protocols, and it's mixable on chain. It's not a secondary service. It's not custodial. It's basically a series of ring signatures that you can program on chain, that you never lose custody of your thing, and you can mix Flux. You can mix Bitcoin. You can mix ETH. You could mix Shiba. You know, whatever you put on Ergo becomes basically Sigma empowered. So, you know, that's a huge benefit in terms of building DeFi, in my opinion. Yeah. So where you can basically build DeFi that, you know, is private.
So is Ergo a privacy coin or no? Oh my gosh, that is the secret sauce. So you guys won't hit the limitations that other privacy coins hit.
Yeah, we're not a privacy coin.
But if needed, you can turn things into privacy coins.
But we have the ability to build cryptographic signatures on the application level, which means we can build cryptographic signatures on chain, which makes things mixable. It's a ring signature. And so like the zero join or Sigma join, which is right now being kind of the paper put together, it's basically running a series of ring signatures, which you can put any native token into that UTXO, and it just becomes mixable. And so if you're trying to track the flow of it on chain, suddenly it becomes, you know, hidden, obfuscated.
And can you explain two things for the audience?
Sure.
UTXO and ring signature.
Sure. UTXO stands for unspent transaction output.
Okay.
Basically, it's a box. Okay. And for the average user, UTXO is basically cash accounting. So if Ryan wants to give me $12 and he has a 20 and he gives me, you know, his 20, I give him back 8. And so instead of having like an account balance where it's minus 12 plus 12, it's plus 20 and then minus 8 back to him.
Okay.
You know, that's a simple way to look at how Bitcoin or Ergo runs its account model. It's functional.
Yep.
You know, one nice thing about it is it's kind of like a calculator, which tends to make it, let's say, a little bit more logical than just plus and minus. Plus there's global state issues, but that's a whole nother conversation we'll get into.
For sure, man.
Now we do run extended UTXO, which means that we have extra registers that a box can carry with it, so that it helps program basically the steps that it's going to go through. You know, so if you have a series of registers in the box, you can basically add extra data, and you use that data in terms of how you build functional multi-stage contract, where basically it's going to check those registers to make sure that it's performed the correct actions in order to be verified.
Yep.
Because we're a new, basically smart contract model, we kind of had to reinvent a lot of existing frameworks, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, we do have a stable coin as an example. That's something we had to build from scratch. We have to build basically everything we do, we build from scratch because we can't just pull in, Solidity contracts that have been kind of stewing and cooking for years in an open source environment. Yep. We actually have to go to the drawing board and build from zero, which is it's a big lift, in all honesty, but I think it also opens the door to be able to put in some improvements over existing frameworks.
So you guys, let me just recap a few things. So Ergo's created their own coding language.
Yep. We created the tools to build a blockchain. Then we built the language to make the blockchain basically expressive but still functional. Then we built a blockchain, right? Yeah, and we're building, stable coins, oracles, bridges that are all brand new designs. It's a big project. It's heavy.
So that would mean that you guys are competing to be a dominating layer 1. Is that your target demographic that you guys are trying to attract people to build on top of Ergo? Or what is the end goal, say 2025, 2030? Where would Ergo like to be if you guys could be anywhere?
Sure. Why does Ergo exist? It's because initially Bitcoin's programmability sucked. Mm-hmm. So, Alex is pretty conservative in general. So he's saying, okay, I want it to lean towards the functional side. But if I extend the registers, we can create this new smart contract model that is much more, Boolean, true, false, step by step, versus, you have the entire expressive logic and you run it, right?
Yeah, that's so smart.
And that gives you a certain, let's just say, better security assurances. It's harder to make a mistake.
Absolutely.
In that environment.
Look at how many hacks happen daily that have been there for years that nobody just caught on to,
Yeah. And so then he also said, okay, and I want to take basically cryptographic signatures, and I want to be able to run them in a syntax tree so we can create on-chain cryptographic assumptions that are flexible, meaning like you can build your own signature scheme on top of Ergo. And that's where the mixer and all of the, privacy or distributed trust models come in.
Wow, that's crazy, man. How long is it going to take before... So at this point, people cannot build on top of Ergo just yet.
No, they can.
Oh, you can now. You're ready to rock.
We have, DEX. We have 2 auction houses selling NFTs. We have a lot of programmability that, other chains have. It's just not as sexy because we're still focused on building these base tools.
Yeah. Working on developing the layer 0 to perfection, or the best you can.
Yeah, and the tools that are going to run, on top of the base layer, like, we have an Oracle framework that we think is pretty valuable, right?
Yep.
Right now, most value in blockchain is on basically protected or guarded by a point-to-point Oracle, right? Matt's running in Oracle.
Can you explain oracles a little bit more? That's the only tech in this industry that I really haven't got to wrap my head around. I understand the general concept of oracles, but what? And then now I'm hearing a lot about APIs. Is there? Yeah. Is one more superior? Can you explain that a little bit to us?
Basically, it's one's part of the other. Mm-hmm. So if you have a smart contract that's going to need external information, it's going to need basically a mechanism to update in order to make it work, right?
Okay.
Think about your brain, right? You need new information. Mm-hmm. So to some degree, oracles are like the brains of smart contracts. They feed it the data and then it executes based on whatever that data is, whether the price goes up or down, or whatever is happening in the environment is essentially programmed into the logic of the smart contract.
This kind of sounds like a stop loss on a trade. When price gets down to this price, but you need something that tells your smart contract what the current price is. Yeah, and then it probably pulls that data every few seconds to try to figure out where price is at, and then...
Yeah, similar. Blockchains are blind and dumb. That's just how they operate. Like, they can't see the world around them. So you basically have to build mechanisms to plug in external information into, the smart contracts of a blockchain in order for it to interact with anything beyond the chain itself.
Yep.
And I guess that's why they call it like oracles, like, oh, we're going to interact with the gods or something. But
sure.
Right now the predominant project is Chainlink. They've done a good job at building out, a network of Oracle operators, but their base assumption is we're going to have good data that comes from one source, right? And that's kind of like, trust me, bro. And
Yeah,
that's
it
really
is.
not that's really not what decentralized systems are supposed to be built on. They're supposed to have distributed trust to where you don't need to trust him, bro. You have some other assumptions you can make that give you confidence that what's going to happen is going to happen correctly.
Agreed. Now, do you think, so how is Ergo's oracles separate, different from Chainlink's oracles?
So we use what's called oracle pools. And basically what that allows us to do is pool multiple data points into one. So you could be a pool operator, and you could say, okay, you're going to pull information from 7 sources, and I'm going to pull information from 7 sources, and then we're going to average them, and then that is going to be like the final data point. It's basically decentralizing trust.
That's awesome.
Information.
That's funny you say that, because that's why I love Bybit, because when I trade on Bybit to get liquidated on my trade, Bybit pulls the price of, say, Bitcoin from Binance, KuCoin, Crypto, whatever it grabs the price of Bitcoin from 7 exchanges, it averages them together.
Yeah.
And that's what has to liquidate your trade. It's not the price on Bybit. And that's why people are always like, oh, why is the price different on Binance and it's different on, this exchange? And I'm like, because they're all using their own set of order books. But the good ones, the legit ones, will have, an average sum of all the price of Bitcoin on 7 different exchanges. That way there's no questioning, oh, Bybit, push price up to liquidate my trade, just to take my money from me. So I kind of understand what you're saying about that.
Yeah. So basically you take that framework, right? Yep. And you also create the ability to create hierarchies to where you can have, let's say, Oracle Pool 1 that has a set of actors that then averages with Oracle Pool 2 that has a set of actors. And the goal is to take power from that one data point and spread it to where, you can't manipulate it. Or if you can, it's offset by, the consensus of everybody else.
Whoa. Dude, I cannot believe how uneducated I am about your project, man. There's so many projects I can't keep up. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, that's probably the most important part of what Ergo is trying to build. How do we get good assumptions? Because that's something that is the entire point of this industry. Exactly. And it's really gone to shit, in my opinion.
I agree.
There's a ton of just, too much control is centralized in one spot in too many places. And the more that we build on top of that, it creates systemic problems, Like if you take a 1-to-1 data point and you put it on multiple chains and then it's exploited, guess what? The hack just got that much bigger.
Oh, Oh yeah, without a doubt, man. That's crazy.
And we're already kind of seeing that, where hacks are like, oh, it's not the $1 million hack, it's the $10 million hack, the $100 million hack, and if the industry keeps growing, who knows how high that number is going to get.
$1 billion hack sooner or later. I mean, Cox was already.
That's insane. Like straight up, that is insane to even try to say, okay, we're going to create a new, system and have that vulnerability there that we can say, yeah, that's going to happen. Yeah. And it will happen.
It blows my mind, man. It blows my mind. How people think that these finance applications, like people wonder why we're not at global real-world adoption. I'm like, because the technology I just don't think is there. Now I may be way less intelligent than all you guys, but I just don't feel like we have the key pieces for a bank to go, I'm going to put all my money from this bank on this blockchain and just let it.
I wouldn't.
No.
I wouldn't. To be honest, I think that's the biggest problem our industry faces, is that we really need to get real about the assumptions that users need to make in order to use these systems. Because, right now, there's a lot of vulnerability that people don't understand, and then it happens and it's like, well, sorry, you got rugged, or it's gone. I guess there's that South Park video that everybody sees. They're like, and it's gone. That happens too much in our industry. It's actually quite sad that those are real people. That's their money, and that's just evaporated.
Yeah, and it's getting there was over 3,000 projects launched since January 1st. Just on CoinMarketCap, that's just the ones they're tracking too. So,
yeah, and it's Who knows, man? There's so much noise out there in this space. Who knows? I would say for us, it's first principles. What are the best assumptions we can give people so that they can look at the system, hopefully understand it, and say, okay, this is why it's safe to use.
So how does Ergo incentivize? Because there's a lot of big layer 1 chains out there now, Avalanche, and I feel like 95. First problem is that everybody claims they're decentralized, right? And when you actually break it down at the end of the day, how fully decentralized are they, right? Is anybody, and how is the Ergo network secured?
Sure, it's a GPU mineable proof of work.
Ooh, I love that. I love the proof of work. I love
it. Now it is ASIC resistant proof of work too.
I love it, man. You guys are gonna get some trickle down. Can't wait for it.
ETH is leaving their infrastructure, which in my opinion is very dumb.
I agree.
GPU mining on ETH has kind of made the miners like this evil thing because their contract model sucked and gas is expensive. And so the users are paying a lot and they're like, why am I paying so much? Goddamn miners. And,
for sure.
It's not necessarily the miners' fault that logic is expensive to execute.
No, it's
they're doing a service. So luckily on UTXO, most of our logic is actually not on chain. It's verified. It's ran off chain, verified on chain, and so we don't have that same bottleneck that ETH has in terms of running all your logic on the actual chain itself.
Wait, so say that one more time. How does that work in a decentralized way?
Sure. So you have the language itself, Ergo script, and then you have basically a syntax tree that guards each UTXO. So you could look at that. It's somewhat similar to Bitcoin in a way, where it's like if you want a UTXO to execute, you have to make that guard script happy. You have to meet the parameters and prove that you have the keys basically to create movement, right?
Yep.
For it to say, yes, I'm going to execute. And so Ergo script is, contracts the logic of it is ran off chain. It's verified on chain in Ergo tree and then executes. And versus, Solidity is basically the entire program's on the network and you have to use the memory to run it. So having that off chain basically makes it cheaper to execute because you don't have as much computing power on chain. Computation is lower, basically.
And what is Ergo's projected TPS going to be?
Well, we have that's hard to say, right? It's in a way you have to break down that statement because number one, what are you sending, right? Now, if I'm working with a smart contract, that TPS isn't going to be the same as if I'm just sending a simple transaction because there's logic involved, right? It's bigger.
Yeah, it has to execute more lines of code.
So it's like how many lines of code, what are we talking about executing anyway, transaction wise?
Let's just say just transactions, like me and you sending each other.
Like I send you, okay. Now you got a second problem, okay?
I like you, man.
You got a second problem. UTXO has the ability to go from many to one and from one to many, right? So you can have, multiple different UTXOs being sent to the same address. And if let's say I airdrop 5,000 tokens in one transaction, is that one TPS? Because in the account model it is, right?
But you executed 55,000 or whatever.
Yeah, but I executed more than one in terms of the actual output.
I see what you're saying.
So it gets really messy.
So
it's one
how
of
are these
things.
blockchains even?
It's sexy, man. It's sexy. It's so sexy to say I have the highest number, Ryan.
I get it now.
Highest number you've ever seen. And it's so many things in this industry are nuanced, right? If you break them down, you're like, well, not really, kind of, but then you have to look at this, and well, that also creates this. It's hard to get simple. Like that simple statement in and of itself is hard to answer if you really look at the complexity of it.
So it should be basically bits per second.
Yeah, you can look at it like the bits that can settle, and that would be more accurate. But then you also have to look at what language and how compressed it is, and then you have a trade-off: is it expressive or is it not?
Holy crap, man! You just blew my mind, man.
It's not
that way.
I would love if it were as simple as a lot of the marketing that's out there, but it's just not.
So riddle me this. Is there sharding going on Ergo?
You know what? To be honest, I think we're going to avoid sharding. I think we're probably going to go with like sub-block confirmations for proof of work. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one is we're trying to build in a compression technique that's called NepoPow. You'll see that a lot.
Okay.
Non-interactive proof of work. And basically what it is it's a way to break down a blockchain into super block eras, I guess you could call it.
Okay.
Where if, every once in a while in proof of work, you'll get a block that has an extra zero at the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to use that as like a sequence. Like if you can say that, a super block era from 6 months ago, here to here is, basically valid. It's been on chain. It's the heaviest chain. We can compress that to just the chain header. That doesn't mean that the full chain is not going to exist in other areas, but it basically allows us to kind of make the chain space smaller in terms of the history of it.
That's genius, buddy. That is so smart. And,
the nicest part of that is it's random. Now, like you can predict it, but you can predict the block time, right? And every once in a while, you'll have a block that's 10 seconds, even though it's supposed to be 2 minutes. And you'll have a block that's, 5 minutes, even though it's supposed to be 2 minutes. So you have variability. So it's not something that you can necessarily, look into the future, predict, and then, exploit. It's just kind of a weird thing that happened with proof of work. And we're saying, okay, how can we take advantage of that and, use it to make the entire blockchain history lighter? So
basically, let me see if I'm getting this right. So not knowing when, but every once in a while, one block will have an extra zero. Yep. When the Ergo smart contract recognizes that happened, it's going to take all of the previous blockchain, compress it down, and put it into that one block with the extra zero, and then basically that one block holds the whole history, and then you basically start with a compressed.
Yeah, you can do that. Now we're still going to have the full chain out there, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to move onto one of these, right? If you want to move onto the phone, you have space issues, right?
Oh yeah.
And if you want to have the entire blockchain history, which is ultimately like full node security, right? That's the security standard you want, is you want to be your own full node.
Yep.
Well, you need to make the blockchain compressed in a way that's, not manipulated, number one.
Yeah.
But also allows you to get maximum security benefits on small devices. And so if you're having, a chain that's entire history is, a couple of terabytes, that's not going to happen. I mean, when are we going to have a terabyte smartwatch? I don't think anytime.
Not anytime soon that I know of.
Yeah, so that's an important thing. Like, how can we take the light client environment or, simple payment verification wallet and essentially give it full node security? You
would have to be able to fit it onto a smartphone watch today, because by the time you develop the technology, the size of the blockchain is going to continue to grow faster than your technology evolves. So
you have to create compression techniques. There's another one out there called Fly Client that actually has a lot of promise. The only thing that I'm not too let's say big of a fan of is it's not randomized. I like the random aspect of NepoPows that you can't exactly predict when you're going to hit that next super block. So
it'd be so hard to exploit.
Yeah, it creates something that's hard to exploit versus having pre-knowledge of what's coming, is an advantage for an attacker.
So what is the secret sauce to getting Ergo more adopted globally by the community, and what would be the best way that you think that these other blockchains have grown their communities? What is Ergo looking to do to?
Other blockchains have done a much better job at being sexier. Much better job being sexier than we are. They're like, wait, let's talk about assumptions. Mm-hmm. Don't move on. We're going to talk about, how do we decentralize trust here? How do we harden this? And it's important, right? But it's not the marketing narrative that's popular. Just that simple.
Yep.
If we look at DeFi, right? We had a community conversation. We're like, guys, I think a lot of DeFi is just gamified inflation, where I set an inflation rate and some people can kind of get in early and capture that and make a lot of money. But I don't know if it has a lot of use and utility. How do we get it off chain? How do we make it useful? How do we ask big questions like that in this space? A lot of the times they don't exist. They're not sexy.
I get a lot of hate on my channel for, it's like people want to just throw money at things and just hope, man. And I'm like, you guys got to start.
You got to ask serious questions.
First principles, my friend. I heard you say it a minute
principle.
ago. If you don't understand the technology that you're looking at and you're just going, oh, I see Shiba. Yeah, I'm going to throw money into Shiba because it has a lot of zeros. And I'm like,
somebody made some money there, and somebody got wrecked.
I was the first freaking YouTuber to make a video on Shiba.
Yeah?
Guess how much I bought?
How much?
0. How much would you have bought if you would have found Shiba day one? 0.
I didn't buy any, man.
Right,
Why would
exactly. That's what I know, man.
I don't understand. I can understand. Well, okay, this is how I see it, right? This is gonna offend people, but that's okay. You look at Web 2.0, right? You have a ton of knowledge and information and really valuable stuff. What's popular? Not that. Like porn and cat videos and okay, so that still exists in Web 3. That didn't change overnight. Like that's all of that madness is repackaged and exists in crypto, in my opinion.
Now, let's talk about how you guys win that money. Because you guys are watching this video, I shared a link on Twitter. Anybody that retweets, likes, and comments on that video or on that link on that Twitter tweet is going to be eligible to win up to $1,000 in Friday night's live stream. I'm going to let you guys decide whether you guys want to do $250 and break it up between 4 people, or if you want to do 100 and divide it by 10 people. But the same person can win back to back to back. So Nightbot's going to be doing the drawings. We'll be doing them live, and I'll be giving away the money live with you guys. So that way you guys know it's transparent. Yep.
But if we're going to try to build valuable tools, we really need to start at the basics and say, okay, fundamentally, how do we make these systems work, that they're safe and that they're secure? And, what are the assumptions that we need to look out for? And that's hard because then you get into trade-offs at some point, right? Proof of work, proof of stake. They both have, positives, negatives. It's trade-offs.
Yep.
I can't say that one is, black and one is white, right?
Yep.
You look at blockchain speed, same thing. You start to get into trade-offs, and it's like saying, okay, well, if we understand like trade-offs, where does Ergo sit? We're actually pretty conservative. We're pretty functional, and try to kind of make sure that the assumptions that we build into things are at least understood, and to where somebody can say, okay, well, if I do interact with the Oracle, how many Oracle providers, how many data points, how safe is this? Because that's like not the question anybody's asking. They're saying, wow, look at this new dog coin. Then nobody's saying, well, how safe is this? They're saying, I want money,
Yep.
And that's dangerous. Just straight dangerous if you think about it.
It's horribly dangerous. Yeah, it's reckless is what it is. Throwing your money at something and you're literally just praying that there's a greater fool than yourself that's going to pay you more for it, before, and then the fact that it might get hacked or
Yeah, exactly. That's just looking at like the market side. But if you actually look at like the trust assumptions, there's a ton of stuff where it's like, developers are like, I'm quitting and I'm taking everything with me. And, you see all kinds of just madness in this space. Yeah, it's kind of sad.
It's even more sad is the hard part like that I've ran into the last couple months is I'm able to look at a project and be pretty confident that that project most likely won't be a competitor in 5, let alone 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard because you can't tell the difference between the ones that know that their blockchain is dead, but they got a $5 billion market cap and a lot of money to market. And if the market goes bullish, they know that they can suck a lot more money out of people. It's hard to understand which ones are actually trying to build, going to be used in 5 years versus the ones that are like, okay, there is so much money in this industry and it's so easy to just reach your hand into that money jar within, like you said, something sexy that has no real world use or functionality and market it like it does,
Yeah.
And I almost wish your Ergo would come out with that benchmarking tool and just be the one blockchain that audits and shows everybody the difference between that. You guys would be $1 bazillion
Well, I think that's a part of why open source development, number one, is important, because you can track those things, but you got to be looking at GitHub, not CoinMarketCap.
Yes,
You know,
I've been trying to get somebody to come on and do a GitHub special with me. I'm not smart enough to fully understand every bit of it.
Sure. But I think that's the place to start. Is at least you can go on GitHub and you can look at their commits in terms of, are they active? You know, because you do have some projects that they're pretty much dead on the actual development side, but you know, they're on the marketing and, you know, let's say market side, they're still rolling.
When you guys enter a comment on, I think if I pulled up Ergo right now on GitHub, those comments are specifically something to Ergo when it just says Ergo, right? Is that, how do you search on there? Because sometimes it'll be like Dogecoin. Am I supposed to put the space in there, or is it always going to be one word, or how do you know when you're on GitHub?
On GitHub, most projects should link you to GitHub, man. If they don't even touch it.
Oh, okay. All right. Perfect. Good to know.
If something's not open source, then I don't know what they're doing in the crypto industry.
Okay, good. All right. Perfect.
You know?
Yep.
That's my general opinion. That's offensive to some, I guess, but
no, it's not offensive. It's, if you're saying you're doing A, B, and C, well, we should be able to see it, you know?
You know, and to be honest, on like the developers side, most of the developers I've met are not so like project focused. They just want the tech to work, you know? I'll use an example. You're using a Flux hat, right? Mm-hmm. If Flux can take, their network and create a solid, decentralized Amazon Web Service type infrastructure, great. We need it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Are they GP mineable too? Sure, let miners aside. I don't care about that. But, sometimes things get so tribal in this space that, it's more like, how can I steal value from you versus build a solution that works?
Yeah, that's what I like about Flux. You guys have nodes, I assume? Ergo nodes?
Yeah, we have nodes. You could run nodes on Flux, potentially. I mean, I have no problem with it. Somebody wants to do it, do it.
Oh, that would be sweet to see a Ergo Flux pair.
Sure.
I would love. I'll message Dan and tell him that you guys said that. That'd be sweet, man.
Yeah,
that makes you guys more decentralized, right? Because you guys have more nodes out there.
That's important, and I don't care if it's, it doesn't really matter which like solution out there it's going to fit. That's decentralization. That's a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's just redundancy. One nice thing about UTXO in terms of on Ergo is we do have off-chain logic, and maybe running that on multiple storage networks would be a good thing because it hardens our network, right?
Yep, and it grows the Ergo community too, because Flux takes those rewards that they get from securing or being a node provider, and then they distribute them out to all the Flux holders.
So as we get tokenized nodes for multiple services, which isn't probably inevitable, looking at how we have to build in UTXO.
Yeah,
we have the potential that you could run that locally and get paid. You could put that into another system, potentially get paid. We'll see, but
that's so cool, man.
If you look at our industry in general, man, the infighting it's traders. They're like, I'm going to steal value from you because you need to buy my project.
Yep.
And then other traders, no, you need to. That's not going to take this technology anywhere.
No, I tell everybody, if you just spend 40 hours researching a specific project, you should know, like, you should understand, like, don't just throw your money at, there's going to be 3,000 more coins tomorrow. Study each one, learn the technology, understand, because right now there is not one blockchain in the industry that I know of anyways that could support just the transactions from FTX. FTX alone, according to Sam Bankman-Fried, would pretty much blow out any blockchain, right? So there are going to be, like, Ergo doesn't need to steal business from Solana, Cadena, anybody. Ergo can find just one company that needs a specific use case for Ergo. You know what I'm saying? Like, your one gaming project, I think, could be big enough to just make a cryptocurrency ecosystem. Like, imagine if Roblox was just on their own blockchain, right? And they're on the Solana stock saying 50 billion. And there's some odd god, like 300,000 transactions per second in Roblox or something crazy like that. It's just like, I think a game like that Roblox has a $50 billion market cap. So that leads me to believe that if one blockchain just had one legit game the size of Roblox, or as popular as good, that would lead me to believe that your blockchain would be that very close to that.
Sure, and that's just one use case, I would say what is Ergo probably best suited for? you know, it's actually funny. If you asked Alex that when he built this, he would say, well, it's very good for financial contracts, which is DeFi, before DeFi was even a marketing word. Why? Because we have, you know, step-by-step Boolean assumptions built into our logic, which makes things, you know, secure. And you also have privacy that is optional. You can make something private.
That's
you know,
huge.
a transaction.
That's huge.
That's a big deal.
And where would you guys see yourselves in 5 years? I don't know if we ever finished that question.
You know, well, that's not for me to decide, man. I want to build tools, right? I want to build the tools that other people can then go and build stuff with. So I don't want to be the hand of the market that's like, oh, you know, who would have thought that, you know, Ethereum would have Uniswap, but also have a game where you could breed cats. But you know,
good call.
you don't want to try to be the market. You want people to come in with their own creativity, their own ideas, and give them the tools to succeed.
That's smart.
That's not something that I'm going to try to come up with some marketing pitch of what other people should build. I just want to build good tools that work. And if you give good tools that work, and then you have the educational tools to support how to use them, then it's like, okay, you guys take over. You know, they become the market, not me. So I can't answer it. I don't want to. I just want to have good tools and education.
Man, you guys got my approval, man. That 100%, man. I hope you guys absolutely crush it, man. It's rare that you find blockchains like yourself in the industry, and I've interviewed quite a few, and there's only been 3 or 4 that I'm really like, wow. You guys are keeping it real. You guys are shooting it right off the hip, not trying to sugarcoat it or trying to shill your project. Like, you guys are the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right now, if you read the Ergo documentation, we are not sexy, but we focus on first principles, and that's what this industry needs.
100,000%, man.
So that's our main focus for now. Like the Ergo Foundation, I'm a part of it. Our goal is to say, how do we build good tools? How do we build, you know, education for those tools? And then how do we help projects that come and build? That's simple.
Dude, man, you guys are, I mean, anytime you guys got a big thing going on, you guys want to come onto the show, you know, I'd love to have you guys back, man. It was an honor to have you on the show, Arminio. And I can't
happy to be here.
Man, I feel like we could keep going for like 3 hours, but if the video goes over an hour, it just underperforms.
Yeah, well, I'll come back on if you ever want to have me.
I'd love to have you, man. Yeah, so
whatever.
But dude, this was great, man. It was really an honor to have you on the show, and I look forward to hope you guys crush it, man. This is a great interview. Thank you. But the same person can win back to back to back. So Nightbot's going to be doing the drawings. We'll be doing them live, and I'll be giving away the money live with you guys, so that way you guys know it's transparent. And I couldn't be more excited to do it for you guys. Love you guys. Can't wait to see you guys next video. Peace.